Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who multiply value to others. My name is Mark Cole, and today I have to admit, I am incredibly excited because there are two legends on this podcast. The first is none other than John Maxwell. You're all very familiar with him, but today, perhaps some of you are familiar with our other good mentor, our other good legend, Ed Mylett. Ed is a highly successful entrepreneur who has blended some unique experiences with a diverse set of practical strategies, and it's literally made him one of the most sought-after inspirational speakers in the world. Now, among many things that Ed has accomplished, one of them has been named Success Magazine's 125 most influential leaders in 2022. Now, in my opinion, Ed, John, 1 and 2's on the line with us. I don't know who these other 123 are. But today I'm excited because literally 1 week ago, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up a new book because literally 1 week ago today, I ran out to Barnes & Noble and I picked up this book because I wanted to get it. I could not wait to get my hands on it. And to be honest with you, John Maxwell couldn't wait to introduce you to this concept and invite you to get this book, The Power of One More. And I can't wait to dig into it today on this podcast. Now, listeners, viewers, you can lean in with me here and you're going to want to capture this book. You can go to the website I'm about to give you, and Ed's brand new book is available right now. Go to maxwellpodcast.com/one more book. Pick up a copy for yourself, pick up a copy for your team. There are multiple bonuses at that web link. You will be able to buy the book and replay Ed's powerful keynote talking on the power of one more. Now, I've said enough. There's all these things that I could say about Ed and John, but I really got to tell you, you want to check out Ed's podcast, The Ed Mylett Show, and also go buy the book today. Now, here I am. Ed, probably one of my favorite times was when you and John did a podcast on your show that was literally epic. I've listened to it multiple times. We've made it available here today in our show notes, and you will be able to listen to that. But Ed, that moment with you and John, and then the moment recently that you were with us at our Live to Lead event, two of my best Ed Mylett moments before today. But today we're glad to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
It's an honor to be with you, and obviously with John as well. I've been looking forward to this for a very, very, very long time. So thank you for having me.
And John, it's always good to have you, but I'm glad to have you and your friend Ed with us today.
You know, Mark, I'm so excited because Ed is making a tremendous difference, not only in the world, he's making a great difference in my life. And when I can pick up a podcast of Ed, or when I can pick up a book like you're talking about today of his, I always do. I have never been with you, Ed, ever, where you didn't teach me something. And I came away better because of who you are and what you teach. So today's podcast, I'm so excited, Mark, that we have Ed with us. I know everybody that's watching and listening, they're just going to get great help. And so let's just dive in and see if we can't help a bunch of people right now.
So let's do. And Ed, like I said earlier, 1 week ago today, I mean, this is brand new, it's fresh. But as soon as John and I heard that this book was coming out, it was something that we wanted to highlight for leaders and people passionate about growing. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, I wrote the book after my dad passed away, who, you know, John and I are in this space. And by the way, the wonderful thing about John is that very rarely in life do you meet your heroes and they exceed your expectations of who they are as a person. And that's who John's been in my life. I aspire to be like John, and I think about it often. And so another guy I aspire to be like those, my dad. But the reason I'm in this space where I believe people can change and leaders can change is I watched my dad do it. First 15 years of my life, my dad was an alcoholic, drug addict, did not live the right way. And I watched my dad make one more decision, try to get sober one more time. These one more themes started to happen early in my life. And I realized that you're a lot closer to changing your life than you think you are. Your one decision, your one relationship, your one thought, your one meeting, one podcast, one book away from a completely different life. And my father was proof of that. And so after he passed away, it was sort of a hybrid of wanting to honor him. But also when you lose your father, you know, Mark, it occurs to you, John, that you're next.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's 5 years from now, 5 weeks from now, or 50 years from now, but I felt compelled. I'm 50 years old. I'm 51 now. I wrote it as I was 50. When I was 30, I thought I knew everything. By the time I'm 50, I realized there's not all that much I know. But what I do know, I wanted to write down and put in a book so that people could have the benefit of my experience. And so this book is what I do know by the time I've been here 51 years.
You know what, Ed, when you talked about your father and how he made one more decision, he went one more time and said, let me try again. I've often said that if people realized how close failure and success are together, they would be greatly encouraged. I think many people that are not cutting it, not really getting what they want out of life, I think they think that the success is a long way away.
Yes.
And one of the things I love about you, and one of the things I love about this book, is you're basically saying, I don't know where you are, but you're closer than you think. And if you could just make one more good decision, if you can just take one more time and make it the right choice, you can turn this around. And you just encourage so many people, including myself, to, if the book said the power of 789 mores, we'd read page 1 and give it a toss, because we don't have 789 in us. But everybody watching us today and listening, Ed, they've got one more. They've got one more. And what you're going to do in this book and what you're going to do today on the podcast is you're going to just kind of take that person that thinks they're a long way off, but they're really not far. And you're going to just help them make that one choice, that one decision, and their life is going to start turning. And that's what I love about who you are. And that's what I love about your father. And that's what I love about this book. And you just have proven that we can make that one more choice. And one more can make a huge difference in our lives.
It is. And you think about in your own life, everybody listening to this or watching it, you've already proven this a few times. If you're married, that one decision, how it changed your life. And I was thinking about, in my dad's case, the one decision, meeting you, John. I mean, it was a confirmation for me, more of the man I wanted to be. I'm not just saying that because we're here today. It made a huge impact on my life, that one relationship, that one meeting that we had. And so I know that this is true. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people will perish. And I think if you really broke that scripture down more, because I have a lot of pastor friends I've asked about it, is it that there's none? Or is it that it's a little blurry maybe? I mean, most of us, if you ask someone, do you have a vision for your life? Do you want to be happy or sad? Your vision's happiness. You want to give to people or not give to people? You want to give, right?
Sure.
So we have a vision. Our issue is depth perception. We think it's so far away. And because we think it's that far away, we act in accordance with this belief. And we perpetually keep it there based on the choices and thoughts that we have. But if I'm right and you're right, that you are potentially one decision away, one relationship away, then you begin to look for them and almost expect them. And when you live in expectation that change can come, that increase can come, then your life is different than having no such expectation. You can get those. We were in high school. If you played sports or your first dance or asking your sweetheart out for a date, you get those butterflies, those butterfly feelings. And unfortunately, oftentimes that's only relegated to young people, because as we get older, I say in the book, John, I have this whole chapter on that 1% of people operate out of their imagination and their vision. 99%, unfortunately, operate out of their history and their memory. I mean, if you operate out of your history and your memory all the time, you will just repeat it. Different people, different circumstances, but basically the same emotions. But if you could shift and have this expectation that right around the corner, there's a relationship, there's a meeting, there's a thought, there's a book, there's a podcast. Yes. Now my outlook on my life is different, and you begin to find the things you seek in life. There's a part of your brain called the RAS, and it's the frontal part of your brain that is the filter, and it reveals to you. I'll give you a quick example of this. It's so funny. I just bought a Tesla. And I don't even know that I wanted one, but I kind of like what this dude Musk is doing. I don't know what he's doing, but I think I like it, right? So I buy this Tesla, and I'm driving my wife crazy, who I've known since elementary school. We're driving, go, babe, red Tesla, white Tesla, they're everywhere. 3 lanes over, other side of the freeway, going the other direction. Babe, black Tesla. She's like, what is wrong with you? And I said, babe, it's become important to me, so I see them everywhere. The truth is, they were always there. But I was missing them because I didn't believe strongly that they were present. And so this is true in our life. The key is to make these decisions, these relationships, these thoughts are Teslas. And in the book, I teach you how to do that through visualization. This is true in being a leader, being a parent, being an individual, it's finding the Teslas of your life and how to get your brain to see them. And that starts with expectation.
You're so right on it. Sometimes people ask me, they'll say, John, I get up every morning at 5:30, I start writing. And they say, you're just immediate, just amazing. You're self-disciplined. I said, no, you don't understand. I get up at 5:30 in the morning, not because I'm self-disciplined. I get up at 5:30 in the morning because I anticipate that I'm about to write. And what I'm going to put, I write it literally by hand with a 4-color pen on a legal pad. That's how Neanderthal I am. But here's the point, Ed. I can hardly wait to get that pen on the paper because I anticipate that I'm going to write something down that in a year or two, when that book comes out, some reader is going to grab hold of that and they're going to say, yes, it's anticipation. And what happens is, what you create so well is you create an expectation or anticipation in your readers and your listeners that gets them to action. I don't take action because I'm self-disciplined. I take action because I anticipate. I anticipate good things are going to happen. Now, the moment you take action, then you go into what I call action attraction. And action attraction is very simple. Nothing comes to you good until you start moving. You can't, we're supposed to leave our footprints in the sands of time, not our butt prints. You know what I'm talking about.
I love that.
And Ed, many people are just kind of sitting and they're kind of waiting for the train to come to them. And what you do so well is you cause the reader to act, because the moment they act with anticipation, expectation, once they act with a Tesla mindset, then all of a sudden, all these Tesla, by the way, those Teslas you're noticing now, they were around you before you got your Tesla. So when people say, well, I don't have the opportunity. No. It's not the opportunity is hiding from you. It's that you're not opportunity thinking. You're not opportunity expecting. And so what you do so well, Ed, is you cause all of us to sit on the edge of our seat. And the moment you say go, we go. Right. But we go because you have taught us that it's in the expectation, it's in the action where all the fruit is.
I got to tell you something about what you just said, and it's in my book and it's from you. The last time I interviewed you, you said something. You say so many things, but I have a chapter in the book where I talk about extremity expands capacity. Well, that comes from John Maxwell. In the last conversation we had, usually when you do a show, it's for the audience, but there's moments that are just for me. And you said, Ed, I'm growing more right now than I've ever grown in my life. Yeah. And I thought, oh, that's a really nice thing to say. And you said, no, I'm really growing right now more than I've ever grown in my life. And you said, because my capacity to grow is much greater than it's ever been in my life. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I talk in the book about extremity expanding capacity. When you do more, you expand. When you do the extreme, you expand your capacity to do it. Not only do you get better at it, but you extend your capacity to do something. And so it's exactly what's true about what you're saying, this expectation thing. Anticipation. When you first do it, it's foreign to you. It's new. It's like, but the more you do it, you extend your capacity. You expand your capacity to expect and to anticipate. So I must say that part of the book comes right from you in our last conversation.
And Ed, I'm 75. And let me tell you something. My capacity for growth and learning has never been as great as it is right now. And so therefore, I'm seeing more opportunities than I've ever had. I'm more excited than I've ever been. But if I think I'm doing good, when you talk about your dad in the book, my father, when he was 94, we were having lunch one day, Ed, and he looked at me and he said, son, listen to me. He said, I've been thinking about this. I've been praying about this. He said, I believe. Now he's 94, Ed. He's 94. He said, I believe my greatest days are still ahead of me.
I love it.
Huge. Now, how could he say that? Is he a delusional old man? No. All of his life, he has intentionally developed and grown and stretched himself, just like when you go to gym and you go there every day and you increase your physical capacity. You can do the same thing with your emotional capacity, your spiritual capacity, your mental capacity. And once you get in the game, it all expands. And again, that's what you do for so many people. Every time I'm with you, every time, Ed, I learn. Every time I'm with you, when I walk away, I am better than when I came into your presence. That's who you are. And that's why Mark and I are absolutely thrilled to have you on this podcast, because everybody that hooks into me some way, They need to know you, and they need to be listening to you, and they need to be reading your stuff, because you will help all of us go to another level. That's a fact.
Thank you, John. Wow.
Hey, podcast listeners, do you have a clear plan for growth? Achieving big results most often does not require big life changes. Small improvements over time compound into big results. Download Clear by Maxwell Leadership. It's the new free app where our expert guides help you pace your leadership journey and set a clear plan for your growth. You can also find all sorts of resources on the Clear app, including this podcast, and information on upcoming events such as our International Maxwell Conference this August. This upcoming conference will be like no other, so be sure to download Clear by Maxwell Leadership in your app store and register today.
Let's go, Ed. You talk about identity, changing your identity in the book. And I want to know what you mean by that. And then how will that impact a leader to lead more positively?
My daughter was just asking me that yesterday, Mark. She's reading the book right now. She says, Daddy, can you explain to me this identity and this thermostat analogy? So your identity is basically the thoughts, concepts, and beliefs that you hold to be the most true about you. It's sort of your worth, but more. And so what really governs everything in our life, one of the reasons that John grows like he does and his father did, is that successful people have this nuance of a lot of self-confidence combined with humility. We all know people with a lot of self-confidence, but they can kind of wear you out. And they usually make a mistake or two if it's not combined with humility. We also have friends with tremendous humility, but if they don't have any self-confidence, you're constantly trying to carry them through life. Humility allows a confident person to be curious, to have expectations, to want to grow, to want to learn. When you hear a John Maxwell being willing to say to someone like Ed Mylett that he learns from him, that can only come from a place of humility, because he's still learning and growing, because certainly it's been a one-way street most of my life with me learning from John. Having said that about identity, it's the most powerful governor on your life. So it's almost like a thermostat setting on your life. This room right now, Mark, John, is set at 74. And you have different thermostat settings in your life. You have a faith one, an abundance one, a happiness one, a physical one. Let's just take physical or business. If you're a 74 degree or as a leader in business, and you start acquiring the skills and knowledge to grow your company and transfer them in the ways John teaches you so well, and you're at 85, 90, 100, 110, if you don't also increase the identity of you and or your company, you will eventually hit the air conditioners and cool it back down to get to what you believe you deserve. You watch people do this in their fitness. Maybe they got a 74 degree fitness identity, but they want to lose those 20 pounds, and they get the tools and the tactics and the diet, and you see them, they've lost the 20 pounds and they're at 100 degrees of fitness. You see them a year later. What have they done? They've turned the air conditioners on and put all the weight back on again. So this is an internal governor. It regulates the temperature of our lives. It's not the external. It can be 150 degrees outside. You can turn that thermostat on. And by the way, the reverse is also true. Life can start to get worse at 40 and 30 degrees, and you turn the heater on, don't you, and get back to what you believe you're worth. So the key thing is changing this identity. Very quickly, I won't get into the details, but I teach what I call the trilogy of changing one's identity. And they're the following, and I'll say them briefly. My identity does not come from my abilities. My identity does not come from what I do or what I look like or what I achieve, because that is fleeting, and I'll always be chasing it. Identity comes from three things for me. One, faith. If you're a person of faith, regardless of what it is, but if you're a person of faith, it's always amazing to me, say Christian like myself. Someone has faith on Sunday when they go to church. Wednesday night Bible study, they're reveling in their faith. But when they walk into that business meeting on Monday, they're alone. When they do that sales call, they're alone. Why is it that you're not bringing your faith into every area of your life and allowing that? If you're really the child of an all-loving God and the DNA of King of Kings is running through your blood, that ought to impact that identity. Number two is intentions. I met Wayne Dyer when I was very young, John, and he said to me, Ed, please, you're going to change the world. And it's not because you're a good orator and you have a big brain or whatever it is. He goes, it's Ed, because you have such a good heart. You intend to serve. Please always focus on your intentions. At that time, he was writing a book called The Power of Intentions. And so my identity comes from my faith and my intent to serve. Right before we started, I said a quick prayer, connected with my faith, and also I connected with my intent to contribute, not my ability, my intent. Even though I'm growing my abilities, that's not identity. Third is association. The 4 or 5 people you hang around the most shape your identity more than anything. When we have kids, it's, mentors are great, but your friends, my kids, when they have school teachers, that affects them. But who am I really worried about? Who they're around every day. And I'll just say this last to you about your friends. Here's a way to know whether friends serve you. Are they operating out of their imagination and vision, or do they operate most of the time out of their history and memory? If when you're with your friends, it's all remember when we did this, remember when we did this, remember this, you're in a friendship peer group that operates out of their history and their memory. But when you're with friends, you're saying, what are you working on right now? Where are you going? What are you excited about? What's your vision? How can I help you? Now you've got the right peer group. And so the trilogy of faith, intention, association will change your thermostat setting.
Wow. I love those three things you just gave us. I'm telling you, that is, every one of us can put our hands around this one, Ed. I mean, this, you put the cookies on the lower shelf. I don't have to get a ladder here. I mean, it's right where I am. Several years ago, I read from a guy named Jerome Bruner, who was a Harvard psychologist. And you know what he said? It's so interesting. The article was, why do people sabotage themselves? Why do people who are seemingly doing well all of a sudden get off the track? And his whole thesis of the article was the fact that we sabotage ourselves when we do not think that we are worthy of what we are, where we are. And so what happens is we then go back to who we really believe that we are. And you have to change the belief system, how a person thinks. I can still remember as a kid, my father paid us our allowance to read books. And I still remember reading The Magic Power of Thinking Big. And I was in the 10th grade, and how I got that concept, and it just grabbed hold of me. Or Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Leadership. All these great books I read when I was a kid in school. And it's so true. What you do for people is you not only believe in them, but you give them such practical, simple helps that they begin to say, okay, I'm going to try this. And all you really are wanting, Ed, all of your audience to do is just to try it. I mean, it's kind of like, hey, if it's not any good, you don't want them to try it, because they're going to find out it's not any good. But if it's really good, there's nothing better than saying, just try it. Just go, just do it, because you know that the moment they do it, they're going to start getting a return on it. And I think that's one of the things that keeps you and I in the game. We love helping people and making a difference and serving them and adding value to them. And all we do is say, basically, these are the principles. They work for us, but they can work for you too. So just try it. And the moment they try it, off they go. And is there any greater reward than seeing your audience grow and develop and get better? That's why we're in the game.
It's what keeps me in the game. And it's exactly what you just said. And I did what I took out of a page out of your book. I put a lot in it. I got like 19 one mores in there, knowing that some will resonate with you more than other ones in the book. But to your point, when I started doing this, I've never felt more at home in my life. It's not work. I get to do this. I don't have to do it. I get to help people. And I remember a time where nobody wanted to listen to me. And now when people do, I'm honored when they get, when they want to. But at the same time, I feel compelled to give people the real stuff. And I'm really proud of the book. I really feel like I did that in this book. Finally did it in the book.
Ed, and you said it, there's 19 one mores. And for all of you watching YouTube, I've got the book held up because I've got my own copy here. But here's what I love about Ed. The content's incredible. That trilogy that you just gave us, insanely good. There's a matrix concept in chapter 2 that I cannot wait to go and redigest. But you know what I love about the book most, Ed, is the thing I love about you, Ed, the most is your passion. I don't care if we're having a conversation, you and John, and I'm just a fly on the wall, or whether you're speaking for one of our events, or whether I'm listening to your podcast. Your passion is contagious. And somehow you have put that passion into this book. And it's almost every time you finish a page, you can hear that Ed Mylett passion saying, turn the page. There's a little bit more for you. Turn the page. And I think you've done a great job. Keep capturing your passion, which is one of your greatest assets in this book. I'm going to remind you again, if you have not picked up this book, or if you have not bought a copy for those on your team, you need to go to maxwellpodcast.com/one more book, and you'll be able to pick up The Power of One More. That is a no-brainer, my friends. Let's go to this, another concept that I love that you did. You've got some really interesting things about this concept we've all tried to tackle called time management. Tell us a little bit how we can change our relationship and perspective of time management and see more opportunities in our life.
Well, I think that I talk about this in the book. I think the 24-hour day is the most antiquated, ridiculous concept that we currently have all bought into in the world. So if you really think about 20, I know it's got something to do with the sun and the earth's rotation and all that other stuff. I get all that. Forget it. But here's the truth. 300 years ago, there were 24-hour days. If I wanted to communicate with John Maxwell, I had to find some way to write down some letter, stick it on the butt of some horse. A month later, John would get it. Hopefully, he'd read that thing, and then he'd have to write me something back, stick it back on the horse, and hope I'd get it a month later. Now I can text him in 2 seconds, but our days are measured the same way. That's insane. And so you can begin to bend and manipulate time. I see myself as a very average and ordinary person who had to create some tactics and strategies, many of which I've learned from John. I mean that, many of which I've learned from John over the years, but I had to change time. And so I started to figure out, wait a minute, when I used to be in high school, if I had to go to a report, I had to go to the library, get an encyclopedia, write stuff down, find the right book. Now my daughter hits Google and she's got a report done in 4 minutes. So that's crazy that the days are the same length. So I started changing it. So now my day is from 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. We've all had a morning or we go, I got more done this morning than I've done in 3 weeks. Well, why can't that be most mornings? Now, by the way, some of my days, my 24-hour days, I watch Netflix and relax. That's okay in a given day. Some of my days are exclusively faith and church. That's okay. But my days now are 6 hours, 6 a.m. to noon's a day. And there I'm going to get the most fun, fitness, work, faith, whatever it might be, 6 a.m. to noon. And then at noon, the day ends and a new day starts. And that clock goes off in my head now. It happens where I go, what did I just get done yesterday? What do I need to double my efforts on? What am I grateful for? What do I need to celebrate? What do I need to triple my efforts on? The new day starts noon to 6 p.m. That's a mini day. Noon to 6 p.m. The amount of fun, business contacts, meetings, relationships, podcasts, family time, whatever it is, noon to 6 p.m. And at 6 p.m., the clock goes off and I'm accountable again. What did I get done? What am I grateful for? How about my prayer time? What about my leadership time? And then the third day is 6 p.m. to midnight. I'm going to sleep in some of these times. I'm going to relax. I'm going to watch TV, but same thing. Now I get 21 days a week when everyone else has had 7. Now stack that up. Stack that up over a month. Stack that up over a year. Stack that up over 10 years. And I'm getting thousands more days in my life. Not only am I doing more and getting more, but here's what also happens. I have now bent and manipulated time. Here's the big kicker. It's the way everybody else responds to you. What is perceived as more scarce is perceived as valuable by many people. Now I'm walking faster, talking faster, a little bit busier. And all of a sudden the world responds to me as if I've got something I didn't have before. So my accountability changes, my repetitions change. My expectations change. I've also extended my life by thousands of days. And the rest of the world responds to me differently. If you still operate a 24-hour day, you are operating in something that is so antiquated. And by the way, you're with 99.9% of the people in the world still. But I know after this book happens, there's going to be a percentage of people who start to understand getting 21 days a week instead of 7.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I just added it up. I'm 225 years old right now.
I love it.
I get it. I just, this is huge, Ed. Wow. No wonder I got wisdom. I'm 225 years old. Now let me say this. You know this to be true. If a person is getting ready to go like on a trip or something, that day before they go on the trip, they get a lot done. Because, oh my gosh, I got a deadline. So all of a sudden we're making calls, we post, we're just doing the stuff we should. Because we now are on a limited time thought for just a moment. And so we do it. What I love about your 6-hour days is that's exactly what it does. It makes, you know what it does? It makes every day count. It makes, because it's 6 hours. I mean, no, on a 6-hour day, you don't look and say, I've got some time to waste now. You don't even think that. So I let you compress time and brought it down so that we have a sense of urgency, and we're not only urgent about it, but we're intentional about what we're doing in those time frames. And I love that, Ed.
You already do this. See, people that excel do some form of this unconsciously. So I'll give you an example. You just said earlier, you're up at 5:30 and you're writing. Well, the last time I was with you was at an event. You had just traveled from somewhere abroad. You weren't feeling great when we did this event, and you just crushed the event and spoke. And you probably don't remember this, but then after the event, you're like, and I got to go to Texas tomorrow. And so you're this very busy, highly productive man who also has an incredibly rich social life and golf life, has an incredibly deep faith life, has a rich life with his family. You have somehow found, people will look at someone like you and go, boy, how's he have it all? And you don't feel like you have it all. But what you do is the way that you look at time is just slightly different than most people. So you're an example. You don't have it in a 3-day thing and formatted, but you already do most of this, John, as do most of the people that you and I like to spend our time with. Their just perception of time is different.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. What I love, though, about you is I never thought of the 6-hour days. Mm-hmm. See, what I love about you is you come into a person's life and you take a principle and you make it tangible. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people that can do principles, but they can't bring it down. I mean, the Tesla story, it makes it tangible. The 6-hour day, it makes it tangible. Until all of us look and say, wait a minute, I think I can do that 6-hour day. I love it. You're helping all of us today. I'm so glad you're on the podcast. Come on, Mark. You and I got to get better because of him. You know that. If we're not getting, come on, we're going to have to slap each other if we don't get on that Ed path and we've got to do more and get on it. You know that.
I know the one thing in this day of my day, this day number 2 for today, is this podcast is going to be a change for me. It's going to make a difference. And let me tell you why. It's not just the 19 one mores. It's not just the book that I'm in the middle of, but it's these concepts that are really radically changing the way that I engage in productivity. You have one more that I want to hit. Now, again, there's about 16 more in the book, podcast listeners, viewers, but you have one more that I want you to unpack for me right here, Ed, before we say goodbye. This idea of goals and standards. You're rocking my thoughts here on how you are viewing the difference between goals and standards. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I wrote them back to back. I have a goal setting chapter, and John's better at teaching this than I am, but I have a pretty specific system on setting goals. But I think if you're setting the right types of goals, you're not going to hit all of them all the time. But I think ultimately in life, long term, you do get all of your standards. Your standards it's teaching people how to treat you. Your standards are what you're going to get. And for me, I'll give you 2 things on this. First, when I was young and I had no self-confidence whatsoever, I built this philosophy that if I could just start to keep the promises I made to myself, I could build some baseline confidence. I think for the most part, if you lack self-confidence, you lack a reputation and relationship with yourself where you trust you. And I didn't trust me as a young person, even as a young adult. And I said, I got to start keeping the promises I make to myself. And they were small. When I'm going to get up, how much water I'm going to drink a day, how many contacts I'm going to make in a given day, when I'm going to pray. And these are things I could control if I was going to work out. And all of a sudden, I started keeping these small promises I made to myself, and I built some confidence. And then I thought, well, if I can do these small things, I'm going to point my mind at the big things. And I believed I could do them all of a sudden. And then once I did that, I thought, well, how can I become super productive? I got to change the standard. And the standard is no longer I do what I say I'm going to do. It's I do what I say I'm going to do. And the new standard is and one more. So if I say I'm going to get on the treadmill for 30 minutes, I do 30 minutes and one more. If I'm going to make 10 contacts in a day, I make that promise of 10 and I do one more. If I'm going to tell my daughter, Bella, I love her every day, and now I keep that promise to myself, I do it and I tell her one more time every day. And all of a sudden, that standard has changed who I am. You stack up all those one mores. John, your great friend, Art Williams, who's another hero of mine, had this amazing saying that I'm sure he still says. And he used to say the difference, and you said it earlier, the difference between winning and losing is so small, it's almost too scary to talk about. And he would say this, and I'd say, well, then tell me what the thing is. What's the small thing? And he never told you. But I was looking for it all these years, and I believe I know what it is. I believe it's one more.
Yeah, it's a fact.
That's the difference. I believe it's the difference.
You're so right on. In fact, Art and I were having a conversation the other day, and he and I are both swimmers. And he said, I swim every day an hour and 1 minute. And I just cracked up because it's the one more concept you're talking about right now. And he said, I never swim 59 minutes. I never swim 1 hour. He said, I swim 1 hour and 1 minute. He said, everything I do is just one more. I mean, it's just exactly where your book is. In fact, I'm sitting here and I'm less than a half a mile from his house right now because he's a neighbor of mine. But I love it. 1 hour and 1 minute, one more, just like you're talking, Ed.
Love it. That makes me feel so good to hear.
Straight from Art.
I'm going to let you both have a couple of minutes just to kind of close out. And Ed, we'll start with you. And then John, you can wrap today's session. But Ed, I mean, this idea of embracing inconvenience, there's so much that we did not get to today that is jam-packed into this book. And I wish you would just take a minute. We are constantly trying to add value to our listeners, to our viewers, so that they will multiply value to others. Do me a favor and just kind of give that one more thought of why they really need to go grab this book right now.
Well, for leaders, I have 19 chapters in the book, but only 2 of them are on leadership, meaning it's the only chapter where I repeat the topic. I had so much to cover on leadership, I put it in 2 chapters. And I had something occur to me, guys, I just want to share with you about 3 weeks ago. I wrote this whole book, and basically the premise is that my dad made this decision to get sober, as we opened up with, and that changed my life. I'm not sure if my dad doesn't make that decision, I'm with you all right now. And that decision impacted my children who weren't even born, and eventually it will impact my grandchildren, all of his grandchildren, the millions of people I've been blessed to reach. You know, that one decision my dad made. So John, it's like 3 weeks ago, and I've already written the book. This isn't in the book. And because I just feel like most people watching this or listening to it think that's great, but I'm disqualified. You don't know about this thing I'm ashamed of, or this embarrassment I've had, or this divorce or bankruptcy, or I've just always been average. So my history tells me this is who I am. I'm disqualified. And so I woke up in tears, and I haven't cried very much in my life. And I woke Christy up. I said, babe, wake up. And she goes, what? I said, something just dawned on me. I said, someone helped daddy. And she said, what, honey? I said, someone helped my dad in the lowest moment of his life, when he was on his knees about to lose his family, maybe thinking of taking his own life. And I don't even know where it happened. It was some bar or dark alley or a coffee shop somewhere. Some precious human being stepped forward and helped my dad when he needed them the most. And I don't know who they are. And they've helped millions of people, including our kids who weren't even born. She goes, oh my gosh. And we're both crying. I said, that's not the incredible part. And that's pretty incredible. It's what qualified this person to do it. What were their qualifications? The things they were the most embarrassed and ashamed of.
Yeah.
Their humanity. The fact that they were also an alcoholic, that they were also a drug addict. Little did they know that the Lord was preparing them with the worst moments of their life when they were driving and drinking or lying to family or stealing from them. God was preparing them. If they had the courage and the expectation to step forward at some point, that test would become their testimony to my Father. And so the very thing this person probably thought disqualified them from ever doing something great with their life was the one thing that did qualify them, because God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And this person was called in that moment to save my Father's life. And it was their imperfections, their flaws, that is what qualified them to do it. And so the very things oftentimes in our life that we think discount us from being a leader, from making a difference, are the very things that are preparing us to do so if we have the expectation and the courage to want to help somebody, like this person helped my father, and ultimately all of us today. So that'd be my final thought.
Wow. Wow. Amen and amen. You know, Ed, you know this as well as I do. We want to impress people. We talk about our success, but if we want to impact them, we talk about our failures. And I promise you, it's in my humanity that makes me reachable. It's also in my humanity that makes me believable. And what your book, The Power of One More. Here's my final thought. I'm glad I had one more session with you, because the session I had with you, I have 4 takeaways. In fact, I can hardly wait to get you off this podcast so I can get back to work on the takeaways. You gave me 4 takeaways that I've got to go now digest and begin to reflect on and begin to apply to my life. But I close with this, Mark, and I know you would agree with me, my precious friend. When you're with big people, they just make you feel bigger. And Ed, right now I feel real big. I love you, man.
I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you so
Hey,
much. You and Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you both. And to all of you that listened today, all of you that have viewed, thank you. We love you. We do what we do because your family, you are people that go make a difference. I know that many of you have already went to maxwellpodcast.com/one more book, and you've already ordered a book. But when Ed was sharing that last piece, you thought of that person that has impacted you. And you need to one more time go back to maxwellpodcast.com/one more book, and you need to order this book. Hey, I want you today to do this. I want you to grab the book. I want you to apply it. I want you to be a leader that makes a positive, powerful change in this world, because everyone deserves to be led well.